Welcome to the weekly podcast, Friday Live. My name is Walter Latham. I am your host, and I'm joined by Michelle Sweeney McCombs, who is your co-host. And I just want to thank you for joining again. And today we're going to talk about Ebonics. We haven't heard much about it in recent years. It seems to just dropped off the radar. Maybe mainstream media said, oh, that's not even worth to even cover. We got more exciting things or more bad news to disperse to the people. Okay, but we want to know about Ebonics. We want to bring it back a little front and center and talk about what are the pros and the cons, and if it really is within that context. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle for her to do her introductions of the panel, and then we'll get started with the show. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Walt, and welcome everyone to the Walt Weekly Friday Live. Everyone, thank you for our sponsors, which is Beauty Blends by Ami, Soap and Love. Michelle Sweeney here. Intro and outro music is provided by Uncle Nephew. Today's panel, we have Ernest J. Robinson out of Washington, D.C., Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps, combat veteran, senior consultant at B. Ernest Leadership and Professional Consultant. Our next panel member, who is also the Walt Weekly engineer, is Gregory Coleman out of North Carolina, COO of Illumination Media and Technology. We appreciate them joining us on a weekly basis. They are definitely bring a lot of gems to the show, and we appreciate you guys for coming in, taking the time out. We appreciate our audience. Thank you for joining our Friday Live. Back to you, Walter.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. How you doing? You doing all right?
You already start with the Ebonics. Look at this guy. Yes. You can't do it. You got to be from New York. Yeah. You got to be
I'm from North Carolina.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's all.
I just want to make sure you're doing all right over there. All right, okay. We're going to be doing this. All right, so anyway, we're still missing two panel members, and they will be joining in hopefully in the next few minutes. Missing Gene, and we're missing Chris Sweeney and Gene Edwards. Okay, so hopefully they will be joining. All right, let's go. All right, today's topic, as I indicated earlier, the pros and cons of Ebonics. All right, is it something we should be talking about? Is it something we should be concerned about? I think we should. That's why I put it on the agenda to be discussed with our distinguished panel. All right, and the first question that I have is, it's been a while, since Ebonics been, subject of conversation and discussion in this country. Every time I hear people on the radio, like, you listen to Kids and you listen to WBLS, they use Ebonics. So our kids are listening to Ebonics. Which is, you got your standard English, then you got your Black English. And is that okay? All right. And I want to know, what are the thoughts of the panel on this continued perpetuation of Ebonics, if it is such a thing, or should it be a language? But I want to hear from the panel on what their opinion and rationalization for their position. Okay, all right. Let's start.
Yeah. So it's funny because I was actually in South Carolina when Ebonics had came out. Matter of fact, the summer of it was somewhere around 96-ish time frame. So I was in New York for the summer, the South Bronx, and then traveled and we had just moved to South Carolina. In South Carolina, for those who may not be familiar, they have the language Geechee, and it's a dialect of French, English, and African cultures during slavery, and there's various pockets that continue to utilize that type of language in order to effectively communicate with one another. And then you have a coin term, a vernacular of Ebonics. And I don't know whether or not if that should be something that should be embraced or recognized, because I think it takes so many different forms. I don't think that there's a distinguishment between one area and another. And you can't use it in the workplace. And so should it be acceptable? I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I don't know if it's even fair to even say that someone can't speak a certain way because of everything with free speech. But
Right.
I don't espouse to it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it can't be no middle ground here. You can't be on the fence now. You can take a position, yes or no. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, I'm going to intervene because April just posted what I was going to say. What's the difference between bad grammar and Ebonics? Like Ernest said, because it's not just the black culture, white culture has picked it up too. They have different forms of it. I remember at one time they actually wanted to pass a bill because Tupac came out with a poem book, right? Remember when he passed away, they had a book, and they actually, some schools in California actually is part of their classroom, and there's Ebonics in there. So they wanted to accommodate, that so-called language of Ebonics in the classroom at the time, and then a lot of people were against it because you're not speaking proper English. You can't go to work, like Ernest said, speaking Ebonics.
Okay.
If you're from New Orleans, Louisiana, you have that Geechee slang. Everyone knows that whole state they speak like that because sometimes I can't even understand them. So, but that's their language of, how they speak. So, there was a time that they were going to make it legal, which people fought for that because I didn't think that would be a good idea.
You don't think it would be a good idea to make it a language?
No, I mean I can't even understand half of them half of the time. Like it's not like a normal language. It's not Spanish. It's not French. It's not Italian. It's not.
But don't you think that's subjective though? I mean, there's nothing concrete that you can put it on and say, well, Black English, which Ebonics is synonymous for, and African American vernacular English is what is what it is. It's just the way we talk. But don't forget that back in slavery times, that was the only way that the slaves could communicate around the slave master was the result to black language.
We're not slaves anymore. We had education.
But we were denied education at that time, weren't we? We couldn't read or write.
Right.
Yeah,
Walter, hold on. The thing is, because you don't want to conflate the necessity of being able to communicate with one another. So that's the first thing, because the individuals who were taken from West Africa and taken from the Caribbean and those who were indigenous to North America all had to figure out ways to being able to communicate with one another, not necessarily to communicating with the slave master. They had to have understandings of what the slave master was saying, but we had to be able to communicate with one another, which is how the fusing of that language came together. But that becomes a cultural understanding, not designating by the United States a set language for the way that we communicate. So yes, in the household, like you may say up the window or down the window, or there's all kinds of things. Like I used to say, oh man, it's bonky so big, and and that means somebody's butt is big. But
I didn't know what that meant. When you say bonky, that's
bonky. Yeah, that's wow.
Really?
Just right. I got you. But see, the thing is, that shouldn't be designated as an acceptable form of communication. The way that you communicate with your family, your friends, that's the way that you communicate. That's like sitting there saying that Pig Latin should be is an official language for 5 to 10-year-olds. That doesn't, it exists. It has a name, but it does not need to have a designation, nor should a designation that is synonymous with bad grammar be associated with African Americans or those of people of color.
All right.
Right. And
All right. I want to hear
also,
what Gene
it's
came
true.
in.
That's true. But real quick,
Yeah.
in
Go ahead.
reference to slavery, they spoke that way also in codes so that slave masters wouldn't understand or couldn't figure out what they were talking about. So that was a
Yeah.
community language. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was going to come to that, but I want Gene, can you hear me?
Greg was about to say something.
I know we got the latency going here.
Yeah, I'm here.
No, go ahead.
But I do want.
I'll jump in later.
Greg, hey, no, you can jump in right now while we're waiting for Gene.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I have some issues with the term Ebonics from the very beginning. First of all, no one, very few people, I should say, in this country speak the King's English or Queen's English, no matter, which way you want to call it. We all use an Americanized form of English that we use to communicate in the marketplace, in the business place, in schools, in academia, in order to effectively communicate, to people, to make sure there's a standard of understanding. Now, I feel we get a bad rap when it comes to what they call Black grammar or Ebonics, because there's negative connotations to anything that we're attached to. So they want to give us the stigma of speaking Black English, as they say, when every cultural group has ways they communicate that are not standard, that are unless you're part of that group, you might not understand. We do it the same way. But I think because our culture is so ingrained here, and then it's so romanticized, it gets publicized to the point where ingrained in society now. Everybody, either you wanted to listen to music that Black folks listen to, you wanted to dress like Black folks do, and you also want to talk like they do. So most folks had a problem with that. If you walked into the house, if a young white kid walked into his house in middle America and talked like he heard Black folks talk, his parents would be astonished, and they would shut that down immediately. So there's a negative connotation to speaking like Black folks. So they also went so far as to let's give it a name. Well, you don't give Italians that communicate with each other that are not speaking the King's English, you don't give that a name. The same thing with the Irish, the same thing with the Indian, Asians, Koreans, Chinese, Japanese. Everybody has a form of communicating that they don't want folks outside of that block to understand. And just like Ernest was saying, we different states. I mean, I can talk, like I'm from Brooklyn, and folks from North Carolina really don't have a clue what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
And that's purposely. I'm speaking, if I'm speaking to someone from Brooklyn, and I'm speaking so they'll understand me. And as long as it's received like I want it to, then okay. People outside, if I need to explain later, I'll do that. But we all communicate in ways that is effective to the person on the other end. So I think over the years, we've gotten a bad rap when it comes to the Ebonics. Now, do I think it should be a language? There's no need for that. There's no need for that. It doesn't need to be an official language. We communicate with whoever we're speaking to, so we communicate effectively, whether it's an official language or not. How many official languages are there? So why do we have the burden of having to justify how we speak and communicate with each other when nobody else does? And that's why, to me,
Right.
it's a joke.
That's right.
It's a joke.
Because you have different, right. You have different nationalities all throughout New York, and each nationality has their own form of language outside.
But not just New York, this entire
the American
country.
language. It is, but I'm just speaking from here. but the whole country does. But if you go up to Washington Heights, they have their own language as far as Ebonics are concerned. They all, each nationality has their own Ebonics. So why is it categorized as Black?
Right, and
Well,
like even
there's
still,
some
like there's
political, implications there with the categorization, right? All
yeah,
right,
but they
but
don't.
before I go further, I want to hear from Gene, if possible. Maybe he's having some technical difficulties. Gene?
Yeah,
Yeah, Gene?
Greg is right because in Spain, the type of the language they speak is called Castilian. And if a Puerto Rican or a Dominican were to go to Spain, they would get lost in the language because it's entirely different. Over there in Spain, they speak like what I'm not sure it was Greg or Ernest that said it, the King's English. Well, they speak the Queen Spanish, and the language that the people from Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic speak, it's almost like a bastardization of the Castilian Spanish language, and they don't get penalized for that at all, and that's just a badge of slavery that took place on those respective islands. As far as Ebonics, I don't use it. I mean, if I see one of my boys, or one of my homegirls, I might say, hey, what's up, sis? Hey, what's up, bro? And that's as far as it goes. I have to always practice good diction, mainly because I work in the courtroom, and in the courtroom they don't play. Like if the judge were to ask you a question, if you responded yeah, the judge would say, "Sir, it's yes or no. Ain't no yay or nah and up in here." You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? And we ain't talking about pulling up your pants and all that stuff. Like it goes down in the courtroom. You better be on your best behavior when you're in front of your judge, and you better be well spoken when you're in front of the judge. So that I carry that with me at all times. I don't try to switch hats to try to make myself be cooler than what I already am. You know what I mean? Because like Andre 3000 said, "What's cooler than cool?" Go ahead, answer that.
Earnest,
What's cooler than being
Ice
cool?
cold.
Ernest.
There you go. There you go. There you go. That's all the Ebonics you're gonna get out of me today. All right.
Okay, Gene.
But hold
That's
on,
good. That was good. Yeah,
hold on. I
Ernest.
wanted to say something what Jean had brought up about Spain. So I did spend some time in Madrid, and Seville, and in a couple other different areas. But in the context of what we're talking about right now, everybody knows about Spanglish, right? And everybody is able to speak it. One, because most who use Spanglish don't have a full understanding or don't speak fluently or do not speak fluently in Spanish, and their primary learned language is English, but it's not being codified in it as its own language. It's almost as if Ebonics is a euphemism to talk about ignorance or poor speaking African Americans, versus it being just accepted as an understanding form of communication between individuals. Is
Right, I
being
agree.
right, is being codified as almost as a euphemism to talk, speak negatively on the African American culture. So
Well, then there's
yeah,
another term that they use, African American Vernacular English, which I think is more appropriate, AAVE. And then there are dialects within this vernacular. And I think Greg mentioned that, someone from Brooklyn, speaking to someone from, let's say, North Carolina, from Charlotte, there will be a break in communication because of a lack of understanding between the two dialects.
I do want to follow up on one thing, and I might not have made that clear. I don't think I did. I do feel that although when we're speaking to each other and somebody that is going to be comfortable in communicating with you in a certain way, I do think it's absolutely imperative that you know how to effectively communicate. I'm not going to say the King's English because no one speaks that in the United States, but to be able to effectively use your diction and grammar like you're taught in school in order to effectively communicate again, in the marketplace, in corporate America, and in education. So it goes back to there being a time. I feel there's a time and a place for everything. And when you're at work, you better be able to effectively communicate. Um just like Gene said. Yeah, I can't go in, I can't go, stand before my church talking about, hey, look here, man. You know
Right.
what I mean? Y'all come on. You know what I'm saying?
I like that
Sure.
one.
I'm fitting to be out of here in about 5 minutes. Y'all hurry up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, triple show.
Only if
I
you in
can't
Yeah.
do it.
deep
Show
country,
no.
that's about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Geechee country you can, but not,
But no, I'm saying, so I don't want, when I think when young folks try to defend, speaking, for lack of a better frame, Ebonics,
Yeah.
they feel justified in not learning how to speak, to communicate the right way, and in
right.
common terms, and just learning what they feel comfortable with. And I don't think that's good at all. I don't think that's a good thing at
And you
all.
know what? To piggyback
Okay.
off of what Greg
But there's a
said, to piggyback off of what Greg said, that's another issue with the young people, just only speaking Ebonics and not learning how to speak, not learning how to use good diction. We'll be in the courtroom and the judge may want to give the defendant a life lesson. He or she, the judge, is about to give the person a break, but before they, give them a slap on the wrist, they try to talk to them, and engage them and give them life lessons. And whenever the young person that's the defendant, has to answer the judge, you can't understand a doggone thing they're saying. It's like, what type of English is coming out of your mouth? Like, what language is coming out your mouth? They can't even speak properly. They can't even, and it's embarrassing, And then what happens is the defense attorney tried to speak for for his client, and the judge would say, "No, Mr. Latham, I want to hear from your client." And myself and all the other black staff workers in the courtroom, we're like looking at each other and shaking our head like, this little son of a, you know what I mean?
yeah, oh
We want to
Lord.
pull his
Yeah.
pants down and whip his ass for being so stupid,
Yeah.
because they think skipping school and hanging out on the block is the real deal until they're faced with reality. Until they're faced with the white man's reality, that's when they realize, you know what? Life is not a game.
Yeah, but the thing is that even with that, I don't think that some of these young people today are cognitively utilizing Ebonics. I think, to Gene's point, it is just a lack of education, a lack of desire to learn, a desire to be contrarian of societal norms. But I don't think that it's being used, or their lack of diction in a courtroom or any particular setting is intentional to utilizing Ebonics. Now, in a sense, I understand, having to change the way that I communicate, because I oftentimes would spend my summers in New York, in the Bronx, in South Bronx, and then I'll go to school anywhere in the South, whether North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, somewhere, right? And there are certain, and so Walter, when you had brought up about dialects, those dialects are very small and very nuanced, like a draw in a word. Like somebody may hold a word out a little longer. People in Baltimore, the way that they say door or for or something like that, or whatever case may be, it's just the way that they pronounce certain words. But there's an agreement of the English of what we're communicating. So regardless of how you say it, when we say close the front door, despite how you say it, we understand and we're in agreement. That's what it is.
No, I like the view, that perspective, because that's gonna, dovetail with what I'm going to talk about now. Is I'm from North Carolina. I think everybody knows that, right? And I left there when I was a teenager, so that's been a while. But when I go home, if I'm speaking the standard English, not so much Queen's English or King's English, we speak standard English. All right, that's what the white people did here. We speak standard English. Hell with Queen's English, right? But anyway, when I go home, within 1 to 2 hours, I revert back to the way I used to speak as a kid growing up. Okay. And there was heavily Black English. Okay. I'm fixing to go here.
Right.
You done that? All right. But when I went to school, that was quickly corrected.
Right, 'cause
Okay.
you know the
So I got
difference.
right. And I passed that on to my kids. All right. You should be able to speak to the president of the United States or the bum on the street. It's a matter of what environment you find yourself in. Okay. I mean, I got a quick story here. You know, I spent, almost 10 years up and down the west coast of the continent of Africa, right, doing business. Okay. And I found between Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia, Ghana, that there was a common Creole that they spoke, that everybody understood, regardless of the tribes, whether it be Limba, Mandingo, Mende, etc. It was called Creole. All right. It was called Sierra Leone Creole or Liberian Creole, whatever. But I'll give you a few examples of it. All right. Okay, I'm a Greek Ernest. I see Ernest on the street. And I would go up to Ernest and say, how they go, bro? How they go? All right. Now, did anybody understand what I just said? I'm saying, how are you?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Ernest may respond to me, I deport that incredible.
But that's the language there.
It's a condensed language of English, tribal, all right, and that everybody understood that, so everybody could get on the same page, all right. But the standard language of, let's say, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ghana is English. You go to school, you're taught English, being former British colony.
So that's just really street language, basically.
And it's understood by multiple people in multiple countries. I was in Guinea one time, I'm telling you, and I needed water. I'm in the daggone bush, in the jungle, all right? No water, ran out of water. We come to this small village in a clearing, just come to an open clearing up in the mountains. And I wanted water. I said, no, I beg, sir. How you do, sir? How they go? How they go, sir? All right, water day? It's water day, meaning it's water there. All right. And he said, yes, sir. And he gave me water. But if I wasn't able to communicate my needs, I could have died. All right. That's why I'm saying that.
Or sign language.
I think what I'm trying to circle back to is that, you could be, speaking the standard English, but be in a position to adapt to your environment, even if it may call for you to change your language or how you speak. You may go from standard English to average Black English.
Yeah,
so you should be able to do that.
That's standard, but it's not something to make illegal.
I know. I didn't say anything about anything being legal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the criticism and the association of Black English with being poor, stupid, ignorant, and it gets a bad rap. And it's part of our culture.
Yeah, but the thing is that in what you're saying, it does not necessarily. There's no prompt here for survival by using poor grammar or English.
I am not saying that. I'm not saying that, Ernest. I am not saying that.
Yeah, no, but that's no. Well, I mean, I know you're not saying it, but the questioning, the discussion here is, is it something that is needed? Is it something that we should be talking about? We haven't heard about it in a while. What are the pros? What are the cons of it? There's not necessarily a pro when in fact it is not universal, nor does it even have a survival tactic, or component to it. When people in the Caribbean, they speak patois. In other areas of Haiti or Haiti and New Orleans, they speak French,
right?
And probably could understand the Creole being spoken between them, but it doesn't have to be nationally codified in order for that communication to exist. And I think that in the context of this conversation, is that Ebonics itself, one, came out of controversy during that particular time in 1996. It is not something that was needed or necessary, and even in the nearly 20 years of its existence, it's not something that we need now. Or over 20 years, excuse me, nearly 30 years. It is not something that we need today. Or to codify in such a way. And most young people, one, they weren't even born or just born in 1996 for those who will be 30 in the year 2026. And it's,
All right,
so
well,
it's not even something that's I don't even think this is something
let's
they're being
okay.
taught. Go ahead.
Let's forget about the coin Ebonics and just say Black English in certain areas. Black English. All right, that's what it's being called. Okay, Black
Okay.
English.
Fair enough.
All right, forget about Ebonics. That's just a term.
Okay.
All right, that's a label. All right. So when I mention, Creole on the continent, on the western part of Africa, that's used in multiple countries, it was a parallel to try to draw a parallel back to what we speak here, because I sincerely believe that we should speak standard English. If we want to be part of the global community, we have to speak standard English. Okay. All right. But on the other side of the coin, we have to retain our culture. All right. And our culture was Black English, and then we were forced to use Black English. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you work anywhere. I worked in Japan, and when they're in Japan, in Tokyo, they speak Japanese. But when they went into Deutsche Bank or Dresdner Bank, all right, they had to speak English, not Japanese. They had to speak English. Okay, so I understand what you're saying. Don't get me wrong. All right, but when I say Ebonics in terms of pros and cons, but I also said, really, should be a pros and cons to it? Not necessarily. I mean, should we even be, arguing the point of whether Ebonics will die out in time or it won't? But I consider it part of a Black culture. That's my take on it.
Yeah, but every part of Black culture is not necessarily some of one to be embraced. Because
for instance, give me an example.
So Black on Black violence has been associated,
But that's every culture. I mean, look at the Italians.
No, I'm not. See, again, I'm not suggesting that it is mutually exclusive to African Americans. What I'm saying is that it's been associated. The same argument that you're about to say about Black on Black violence is the same argument that we presented about English, about all the other cultures that have different types of way of being able to communicate and speak, but none of them are being codified as some other type of alternative language. It's not being done that way. And so there's no need for us to sit there and embrace a particular thing as a part of, quote unquote, our culture when, one, we're not the ones who designated it to begin with. We're not the one who coined. I mean, granted, I know we're trying to step away from the coining of the term, but we're not the ones who did that. We spoke how we spoke. That's it.
Okay.
And right, there was nothing to sit there and say that. Doesn't say what it was. That's just how we talk. And matter of fact, before the existence of Ebonics, that's what you said. That's how we talk where I'm from. Y'all don't talk like that. No, we don't talk like that, Slick. This is how we talk. Okay. And then you either you adapted, or you didn't, and people learned to understand your accent, or you switched it up when you came around that area. And that's how I did when I went to, again, going from the Bronx. It only took me a couple of days, and I'm talking like I'm from the block, you know what I'm saying? Because that's how I had to get down, you know what I'm saying, in order for me to fit in, to feel like I'm a part of that particular culture. But when I went back to North Carolina and I'm in class, I had to speak a certain different type of way. And so for a couple of weeks, I sounded different than everybody else.
Okay. I mean, basically, I think a lot of times, Ernest, that when we come at certain time, we come at it from two different angles, but we're basically on the same page.
Yeah, we'll get to the same result at the end of the day.
Exactly. At the end, we come to the same. Yeah. But I do want to hear from Gene. Gene, you've been quiet. What's your take here before we move on?
Pretty neutral. I don't have much to say on that particular topic.
What's that, Gene?
I said I'm pretty neutral. I don't have much to say on that particular topic.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So how about Greg? Greg, you're on mute.
Just like I said earlier, I kind of I don't feel I'm not happy about the label that we get when nobody else gets that label. And so we have the ability to to speak and communicate to each other in different ways just like everybody else does, but we do it's imperative for us to be able to learn to speak standard English.
I agree wholeheartedly. We have to. We have to survive,
No
as I
doubt.
said, and to be part of the global community. We have to. I know. I remember when I was working at a bank, and the Indians, we outsourced a certain part of our activity to India. All right, so we had Indians coming over and taking over people's jobs. So they had to do a brain dump. The guy had to tell them what I'm doing. This is in technology, IT. So basically a brain dump. But we had to go to class to learn the mannerisms of the Indian folks that came. Why they shake their head side to side, things of that nature. So, we fell over backwards to accommodate them. Okay. So I say that to just say that with Black English or people from the South or people from the North, regardless if you're Black and you fall over and you're treated because of the way you were raised, you're a product of your environment foremost. Okay. So if you were raised in a household and in a neighborhood that spoke poor, grammatically incorrect English, then you're a product of the environment, so you're going to reflect that. So that's something that needs to be addressed, which also leads me to this question here is, why do radio stations or broadcasts, I can name a few, BLS 107, okay, and you got the DJs or whatever you call the anchors or whatever, speaking Ebonics. That goes right to the kids. Now, I need to know what y'all guys think about that, the perpetuation of grammatically incorrect English.
I think that's simple. They speak to the audience that they want to reach. Whoever that program manager has decided this is what our market is, well, that's who we're going to speak to. And what language do they speak? They're going to speak to them like they're accustomed to hearing and they're accustomed to speaking. They're not going to go outside that norm and understand. Yes, is it bad grammatically? But with them, it's about the dollar. We're not going to sit up here and speak standard English. And what are the kids that we're trying to bring in going to do? They're going to turn to somebody else that speaks like they do. This is economics. This has nothing to do with. They could care less about bad grammar and whether it's whether it's right or wrong. They care about reaching that target audience.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ernest.
No, I was gonna say that I agree to a point because majority of those individuals who are radio personalities are educated, and so they use it as a gimmick, not necessarily in their everyday language and or talk. But it does make sense for those who are listening on an everyday basis for you to be able to speak the language of the people that you wish to that are your constituents, so to speak. Like that's an important role. Like you don't want to speak over somebody. You don't want to speak down to anyone. You want to speak to them. And so the best way to being able to do that is to understand, what environment that you are actually in. So I don't see nothing. I don't see nothing wrong with someone, a radio station, using it as a gimmick, but only as that. They're not endorsing it. They're not teaching it. And most come with the sense that we have a better understanding of the English language. But it's also not it's not their job every single day to teach English. It's their job to be entertaining or bring the news in some shape, form, or fashion. So I think that I think the nuances of holding the responsibility to radio stations or personalities, is a little tough.
But
Yeah,
what I'm thinking is,
Ernest was dead
you know,
on
the
with
point
that
that I'm
because
coming. Yeah, go ahead.
I said Ernest was spot on with that. It's marketing. I know, and I'm not sure what it's like down in D.C. or North Carolina, but up here in New York City, I mean, they even have pre-Pride celebrations. They don't even wait for June 1st anymore. They get started in late May with all this Pride celebration, and so every commercial you see on TV is always something involving the LGBT community. Not sure whether it was Coke or Pepsi, but they ran a commercial where a brother was just grooving on TV, right?
Okay.
And the voiceover, it says, like I said, I forgot whether it was Coke or Pepsi. It said, June is Black Music Month. Let's give tribute to all the black musicians, from past, present, and the future. And the brother was just grooving. And when the commercial went off, I was like, damn, I should go get me a Pepsi or something, whatever it was, because I was like, damn, finally somebody's going to say, oh, it's Black Music Month, not just everything being, Gay Pride Month. So that
Right.
was specifically targeted, towards, I want to say black men, because it was a brother that was up there dancing, you know, and sisters would dig it too,
Mhm.
and for me, what's worse than hearing Ebonics? I hate it when I hear black people use words and phrases that that do not exist. Like when I hear people say irregardless, that's an imaginary word. There's no such word as irregardless. Or when I hear black people say I could care less. What are you trying to say there? You can care a little bit less than what you do now? No, the phrase is I could not care less. Or like the Force MDs back in the days,
Right.
I couldn't care less. So that really gets my goat when I hear words and phrases used improperly, more so than when I hear Ebonics. And
Making
with
up
that, I'll
words.
digress. Yeah.
Oh no, great. No. I love it.
Well, hold
I
on, I
love it.
want to piggyback off
I
with
tried to
Gene.
set some fire here, and I think I lit a little match, and I think it's burning a little bit. We're getting there.
I want to piggyback on what Gene was saying, because I think that the fact of, again, the term Ebonics, um, is embracing something that is widely considered to be improper. So versus correcting the language, we are encouraging that language. And I think that that's where the draw begins at. It's not the fact that you can't say something that's improper. It's the fact of embracing the fact that you're not speaking proper. So, and there is a fine line between those who understand the difference between the two. So it's like teaching somebody how to steal candy, or the fact of the matter, like you never taught to lie, right? Like it
Right.
was not something that you were taught as a child. Like no one's grandmother or mother said it is a good thing for you to lie. This is how you lie the best. Now, granted, many of us may have said something that may not be 100% true, whether it's today, yesterday, last week, or whatever the case may be, but we were taught better, right? And if
Right.
you catch somebody in a lie, we'll correct that as something that is considered to be improper. We do not sit there and embrace it in any shape, form, or fashion just because it happens to be something that a lot of people do, regardless of the demographic.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, I mean, from my experience, is that when I go home, I go to like North Carolina, and I'm around the boys or the men that are now grown up. They're men now, and when the people that never left, they still speak the same way we did when we were little boys. I found great pleasure in being able to revert back to just talking. It was one of those things about being back home. It brought back a lot of things for me, and to be able to still have that in me, that it can come out and I could be understood. Because if I speak standard English to some of the people down there that I grew up with, they wouldn't understand me. So, but I take great pleasure, and I look at it as just part of the culture that I came up in. But I know that on the other hand, you can't make a living speaking that way. Okay, that's why a lot of them didn't move. They still stay there where they could still speak the way they did when they were growing up. But those are I wouldn't say but I can't say that, no. But they were taught better in school. They know what the correct standard English. When they're in a certain environment, at work, they speak the standard English. But I took great pleasure in just being able to just speak the way I did, but regardless of the structure or the grammatical implications. But I mean, to me, it was like coming home.
That's
I don't know about y'all
nostalgia.
guys. Yeah.
That's nostalgia. But that right. And that's okay. It's perfectly fine for us to have a sense of home, a connection to a culture, right? And when you grew up in it, or as a part of your family, or whatever have you, that's okay. It does not need to be, anything further defined by the United States to being able to talk about those particular that particular language and or culture, because one, it is something that is not universal. Again, the example that you gave by being on the coast of Africa and everyone speaking certain dialects of Creole that was universally understood makes sense. Patois in Jamaica and other Caribbean islands makes sense. Geechee and or Gullah in South Carolina, in the Low Countries, from Hilton Head down the Savannah coast, was Savannah, Georgia, and on the Georgia coast, makes sense. But all of those, to where you remove the term Ebonics and just talking about Black languages, that's what that is. But it's not something that can be categorized under one particular thing. It's just like over the past several years, a lot of Black people have gotten on different social medias and television and everything else to talk about how Black people are not a monolith, right? And our language and our cultures isn't such either. And the other thing that's also a distinguishment between what Black culture or Black languages are today is one, and Gene brought this up either last week or a couple of weeks ago, about the fact that in the United States, we do not have a father. We do not have a language or king that we here are tied directly to. We are a conglomerate, a cohort of people and languages and cultures that have been fused together. And we have each individually have been able to partake in many or some of those particular cultures, and therefore we directly identify with that. But to have Oakland School District in 1996 try to codify Ebonics or Black languages and attribute it to Black culture is something that we do not need, nor should we espouse to. And I think that we should embrace our culture for whatever it is, however we define it, and however we're able to effectively communicate with one another.
Well said. I like that. I like that. All right, Greg, I haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, I thought I was talking too much.
You on mute? Yeah, you have anything
Yeah,
to add to that?
yeah. I
Because I
mean,
got a few things.
it's. I agree with Ernest, and I definitely agree with what Gene said earlier. Is it's I don't need anyone to make. There doesn't have to be it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be justified. It does. You don't need to make it a language. Look, we communicate. We communicate, and we also know the difference in how we communicate. Like I said, there's a time and a place for everything. I don't sit down. Hey, look, I know how to go to a restaurant. I know how to choose the right fork if I'm in that restaurant. I know how to go through different courses, but I also know how I'm not going to grab that knife and fork to eat some spare ribs. I'm not going to use that knife and fork to eat. Now I'm getting real stereotypical. I'm not going to use it to eat watermelon. There's a time and a place for everything, and we all know the time and the place. And no, I take that back. Let me not say that. We don't all know, but we should all know the time and the place. So you got to be multifaceted. You got to me, you got to be multilingual. You got to be able to communicate in more than one way. And this is just to me another negative connotation that they want to throw on the way we do things as opposed to other
Exactly.
folks. And
That's
there's
my
no,
point.
and honestly, like you said at the very beginning, I almost, I hadn't heard about this debate in a long time because I ignored it then. Then I'm definitely, it's let them argue about it because it's not an argument to me.
Right. Okay. Great discussion, guys. I did this. I covered this topic. I wanted to cover this topic because, as you said, Greg, it's been out of the mainstream media. Nobody's talking about it. And I was doing a research. I think I did get something in 2020, but after that, prior to that, rather, it was like in the 90s, since anybody was talking about Black English. So, but I do want to switch gears on y'all guys here now. All right, because I think I got a gist, or I
Hold
think I
on,
got a
Walter. Hold on,
consensus,
Walter.
or
Walter. Hold on. I got
I
something.
think I
I
got
just
to
need.
put. Yeah, I mean,
I
yeah,
just. I just
Gene.
need. I just need 30 seconds. I think Ernest mentioned Jamaican patois twice. I have a lot of Jamaican friends, and I always laugh at them and call them uppity because they refuse to use patois. They speak the King's English, and the only way you could tell they're Jamaican is because you could hear a hint of an accent, but they don't use patois. And when I asked all of them why individually, they say it's a poor man's language. Now, the history of patois in Jamaica, when the British came over there and colonized the island, they used the poor white men from the countryside of England to be the overseers over there on the different plantations in Jamaica. So patois comes from England. It comes from the old poor white men from the countryside of England. So when the enslaved heard them speak English, they heard them speak patois, not Massa, who was the distinguished gentleman from London that lived in the big house. No, they heard it from the poor white men from the countryside of England, and that's why my Jamaican friends refuse to use patois because its origins are based upon poverty. And I will digress with that.
No, that was good. That was great. Thank you. I didn't know that. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, guys, I'm going to switch gears here. I think if we were to vote on this, it will be everybody's in favor of standard English, and to hopefully minimize or eliminate grammatical English incorrect English where possible, as soon as possible with our young people. All right, because as I said, they will be part of the global community and they need to make a living. They need to, a lot of things we need to do. I can go through a list and I don't have time to do that now. But I want to switch gears to the New York City elections. For those that are not in New York, that are on, maybe you can find this interesting. We got the elections that early voting will start. It had started, right? With final on the 22nd. Am I right, Gene?
The early voting starts tomorrow, Saturday, June 12th is early voting, and it goes for 9 days, and
All
then the primaries on the 22nd.
right. Okay. All right. Now, The New York City election. Now, when I started this show, one of the mission statement was that we would be apolitical. Apolitical meaning we're neither Republican or Democrat. But everything we touch that impacts the Black community negatively or positively, it has a political slant to it. So I'm thinking about removing that, for what it's worth, just removing the apolitical. But if it impacts the Black community or the brown community, we cover it. Okay. All right. So going back to the New York City elections, does anyone have a favorite for mayor? I mean, I think only but a couple of us won't be able to vote in the New York City elections.
Mhm.
All right. And I see some front runners.
Well,
So,
this year we got ranked choice voting, so you could rank up to 5 candidates.
Right.
You know, so my five. I'm going Ray McGuire, Eric Adams, Catherine Garcia, Scott Stringer, and then Yang last. That would be my fifth. As
Mhm.
far as the candidates, I want to say, God is good. I've been a panelist, a recurring panelist for about a year now. I think I jumped on when I first found out that I won last summer, and thankfully, through the hard work and diligence and prayer, I built a pretty good resume and profile for myself. So I have three mayoral candidates coming in this weekend. I have Maya Wiley coming in uh, on Saturday. I have Ray McGuire coming in on Sunday, and I have Eric Adams coming in on Monday. And I had a candidate forum with 4 judges running for civil court judge in the Bronx, and I had 3 city council candidates and a Bronx borough president candidate all come through. So the fact that these different candidates know you got to come to the South Bronx, particularly my district, if you want to get some votes out of the Bronx. I mean, I'm thankful for it because it didn't have to work out this way. Number one, when you run for office, there's no guarantee you're going to win. And even if you win, it doesn't mean people are going to have to gravitate to you or buy into your program. So the fact that people are buying into my program that I got going on in the South Bronx, I'm just so thankful to the Most High for it. And we're pushing, and we're getting it done. And we're challenging all candidates. We're not just giving you our vote because you're black. We're going to challenge you. And with that, I'll back.
no, that was great, Gene. That was great. All right. Michelle's a New York City resident. Can you
Eric
divulge?
Adams.
Have you made a decision?
Yeah, Eric Adams is on the top of my list. I like the fact that you can have 5 people on there, but Yang is not one of them. So, well,
What do you
they're
think
all
about
my
Maya
favorites.
Wiley? She's coming. She came up. She's coming out of nowhere, though, right? I heard she's in second place, if I'm not mistaken. In some polls, she came in second.
Is that the civil rights lawyer?
Yeah.
I don't know much about her, until this election. So,
Okay.
I'm still researching, but I know Eric Adams is at the top of my list.
Well,
All
we're
right.
gonna have to
Yeah. Well,
revisit
one
that
thing.
on another show because, like I said, she'll be here with me tomorrow afternoon. We have a
Hmm.
basketball tournament going on in
Oh,
the
she's gonna be
nicer
there.
houses.
Okay.
Yeah, she's
Hmm.
gonna be there, so I'll get a chance to chat her up. If you
Is she
want
from the
to.
Bronx?
I don't know where she's from. I haven't
Okay.
heard good things about her. That's why I want to chat her up
Right.
myself. You know,
Right. I
and
know nothing of her.
if you really want a big flex, I'll call you and put you on the phone with her.
Oh, okay. That sounds good.
All right.
I don't turn
No
down no
guarantees. I'm
challenges,
just
No
going.
but
guarantees.
I'm
sounds
yeah.
good. Sounds good.
I'm going to try to flex. I'm going to try to flex. All right, sis.
Yes, yes.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
All
Yeah, I
right.
like
Good.
Garcia too. So,
You like
but
Garcia? I know your
mhm.
brother doesn't.
I'm because what she did with the sanitation, but I mean, all the politicians that are, the political parties that are running, the only one that I know 100% about is Eric Adams. All of these people are coming from the left, so
All
I have
right.
no idea. But I do not like Yang because Eric Adams, when COVID came in, he was out there in the heart of the beginning of COVID because they were price gouging. He was in the streets. He was helping people. He was giving out food. The homeless people. He was just out there. Yang, as soon as COVID hit, he took his ass to Atlanta. He just jumped bail. Just like a lot of other rich people, they got out of New York when COVID hit. So, Eric Adams, he stayed in the battle. He took on the war and he went through it through the whole entire COVID, and he's still there. He's done a lot for Brooklyn.
Hold on. So I'm not I'm not a voter, so I don't got a dog in the fight. I'm not a voter in New York. Let me clarify that. I'm not a voter in New York. I don't have a dog in the fight when it comes to that. But Yang went to Atlanta to help Atlanta tip the vote. Now, again, I'm not saying for you to endorse him or to support, whatever case may be, but his chief primary reason when he left to go to Atlanta was so that way he can become a resident for that temporary time frame and be able to vote in the special election. And
that's the excuse he gives. That's the excuse.
I mean, no. Yeah. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it was right, wrong, or indifferent. Not saying that he was truthful in that sense. But Atlanta, I mean, first of all, Georgia was a hot spot also. So, I mean, it didn't necessarily seem like it would been advantageous to leave.
Yeah, but they were more open than New York was. New York was really like we were down. Yeah. I mean, completely shut down. Atlanta was still out there doing their thing.
Yeah, I got you. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there that that was the at least the very public, unless you know something else different.
Right. He also said that he was helping, with the campaign to get Biden.
Which he was.
But a lot of people were, but they didn't move out of the damn state to go do it. Like he completely left New York for months.
Yeah, but that's the reason. Again, the rationale was he needed to establish residency so that way he could vote in that special election. And that was one of the things he had said. He wanted to put his money where his mouth was. So he moved, got a place in enough time to be able, under Georgia law, to establish residency and being. And now, again, I'm not saying that because he did that was great that he did that, and whatever effort helped the election, saying for the state of Georgia. I'm not saying that that's going to be the benefit to the city of New York. So I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just saying that that's what the reason was, and that's the reason why for the extent of time that he was there. And then I'll also probably say this too. He probably stayed a little bit longer, probably seeking to see whether or not he might get a cabinet position, because of the amount of money that he did put in. He was a presidential candidate, and many candidates that were there oftentimes got other different types of positions that were offered to them for their contributions to the victory.
So being that he didn't get offered one, he came back to New York to run for mayor.
2 + 2 still equals 4.
I still don't like his ass.
Yeah.
Amongst other things, because I noticed, when they do interview him, he kind of shies away from certain questions as well. So, I mean,
Yeah, you can see a little tension on his face,
Yeah, he doesn't like to be asked certain things.
So,
yeah. Eric Adams is coming hard. I'm like I said, I'm from Brooklyn originally. So I've been around him. I've been to events around him. He honored my grandmother for her 100th birthday 3 years ago. He was always a cool person. He's a people person. He's a community person. So, he is who I know. So
I understand.
Yeah.
But, we always talk about, down ballot. I mean, both, you have to focus on those other than mayor. We spoke about mayor, but we didn't speak about DA. We didn't speak about city council, borough president. By the way, Gene, how is Vanessa Gibson coming along? In any polls? Haven't you seen any late polls showing her where she is in the polls?
The last polling the last straw polling that I saw, she was comfortably in first place, but we can't let our foot off the gas because she has a strong challenger in Fernando Cabrera. Also, Andrew Yang endorsed Vanessa, and Vanessa in turn endorsed Andrew Yang for mayor.
Oh, man.
So that's the latest and the greatest with her.
Yeah, that may be a negative there. But then again, what are you going to do? But we had Vanessa Gibson.
It was a business decision.
Yeah, it's strictly business, nothing personal.
Because you got to realize that her and Ray, or her and Eric Adams, they would be drawn, or even her and Maya Wiley, they would be drawn from the same pool of voters,
Right.
So so Andrew's going to use her blackness, and she's going to use his diversity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a business decision.
Right.
I see. Makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, with that said, I do want to, speak about the DA. I mean, y'all guys, the New Yorkers I'm speaking with here. What about DA? Who y'all guys supporting?
Well, we don't have a horse in that fight because we don't live in that county.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I forgot about that. I can't. I'm not eligible to vote in New York City, even though I live in New York. I'm not eligible to vote in New York City.
Yeah,
So yeah.
the district attorney goes by county, so I just hope they
Mhm.
pick somebody that's going to be fair,
Right.
But I haven't even paid attention to that race at all because it's of no moment to me living in the Bronx, the
Mhm.
Right.
Manhattan DA, and I work for the Bronx DA, so one would think that I care, but
Mhm.
Yeah, I
I couldn't
understand.
care less.
I understand. I understand.
Right.
Okay. All right. So anyway, I mean, we got some skin in the game with Vanessa for borough president. All right. So we wish her the best. And hopefully, if she gets a chance, she could be back on the show. What about Senator Bailey? Have you heard anything from him lately?
Yeah, I've seen him out there.
I
He's
don't
done
think I
something
don't think
recently.
Has he endorsed
he,
anybody?
Yeah, he's back at Eric Adams, so he's going to be here
Mhm.
Monday with me as well. He's back in Eric Adams. Matter of fact, the whole Bronx Democratic Party is back in Eric Adams.
Okay.
I don't know, for some reason I just can't wrap my arms around Eric, man. I don't know why, but I heard everything you said, Michelle. You're right. He was in there, at ground zero,
Right.
of the pandemic. But
Yeah,
I
nobody's
don't know.
perfect. I just,
Yeah, no,
have
it's
my
not even
own.
his past history. It's just how black folks are. We kind of like go off of energy and vibes. You know how
Right,
black people
right.
say, "Yo, I don't like that dude. Why not? I
Mhm.
don't know. It's
Mhm.
just something about him, man. Something about his
Right.
face. I don't know. I don't like that dude." And that's that's my
Yeah.
Ebonics. Second time I'm using Ebonics. But yeah,
Right.
that's how I
we
feel
didn't we
Right.
about.
didn't
Right.
catch you
Right.
That's how
there.
I feel about.
Hey, Ernest,
That's
you
how I
didn't
feel
catch
about
him.
Eric Adams, man. Every time I hear him,
Come
every
on.
Nah,
time
I
I
mean,
hear
that's
Eric
how I
I'm
feel
Adams,
about
I'm letting him
Yang.
live.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Yang. It's like something about him I don't like. So
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
But anyway, we're pushing up against that time again, folks. I want to
Mhm.
thank everybody that joined us and the people that continue to support us. Uh, I do want to make an announcement that we did hit 100 episodes. We've surpassed 100 episodes. Our 101st episode, this is the 102nd. We also do one-on-ones, which we release directly to the podcast platforms. We completed. It's in the can. And I tell y'all guys, I think, y'all guys are gonna really, really like it. I may put a little bit of promo on it right now. We did an interview with Walter Latham, the CEO of the Kings and Queens of Comedy, creator, executive producer. He put it together. All right. He's the one that worked with Spike Lee. They released it. They made history as the biggest comedy release in the history of the United States, of the world, actually. And Michelle and I, we interviewed that. That's in the can. That will be released in a couple of weeks. So I do want to announce that next week we will be celebrating. And I think I'm getting into Michelle's territory here. Michelle, I'm going to turn it over to you right now. Let me just stop. But I wanted to get that out, right?
You were
Okay.
excited. That's
Yes.
all right. That's all right. So it's not a celebration because Juneteenth was where we emancipated. So Juneteenth represents Black American slaves being freed. So next week, Friday, our show will focus on that, and our weekly panel will be on. We will have a poet to come on the first 5 minutes just to give a poem in honor of Juneteenth. So we thank our live audience for joining us this week. We hope to see you next week. Please follow the Walt Weekly. Thank you to our weekly panel, Ernest, Greg, and Jean. We love you guys. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, Michelle.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, just to give Walter confirmation. Let me tell you something, brother. If Vanessa Gibson wins, God willing, she becomes the next borough president. Oh, she gonna be on this show.
Oh, yeah,
She
definitely.
gonna be on this show so she could talk her talk. All right.
There you
First
go.
black
There you
first
go.
first black person and first woman to be borough
Right.
president. Oh, she gonna get on here and talk.
That's
her talk.
right. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
we're looking-
yeah. She
well,
been with us twice, so yeah, in victory, and we pray for
Yeah.
that.
She
That,
got
that she's
this.
victorious. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
She got it. She got it, Jean. We're looking forward to that one. We know she's going to win. She got a lot of people that loves her. She's done a lot in the community. So thank you for that, Jean. Thank you to our sponsors, Beauty Blends by Ami, Soap and Love, and Michelle Sweeney here. Thanks again to our weekly panel, Jean, Ernest, and Gregory. You can follow us at thewaltweekly.com, IG and Facebook, The Walt Weekly, Twitter, Walt Weekly, Podbean, The Walt Weekly, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and other streaming platforms. Have an awesome weekend. Everyone be safe. Enjoy the weather. Peace out.
Peace. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.